Hey guys, today we're going to talk about what is programming. I'm just going to give you a few little slides here. Just going to throw a few things at you just to kind of give a summary of what is programming. What is computer programming? Basically, the most just basic phrase, broad phrase, telling a computer what to do. Delete these files. Like when you go and you delete a file, you're not just thinking and the computer just deletes it, right? You tell the computer what to do. You move the mouse, you maybe right click on a file, and then you choose the delete option. And so those steps are basically programming. Now the traditional sense of the word programming, what you're probably thinking of, is a little bit different than that. It's writing code instead of using the mouse and stuff. But that's the broadest sense way to think about it. So here's an example of getting a little more specific. When you're writing code, it's usually like a recipe, so there's steps. Let's say you want to, like in this example here, you want to delete a number of files, all of them if they're older than 2012. So you would put in steps to the computer. First of all, computer, check the date, write some code, check the date on this file. If the file is older than 2012 based on its date, then delete the file. If it's not, then do nothing. So that's kind of what like coding is more like. It's like a recipe. And then there's programs that use other programs, and that's all part of programming, like knowing which programs you can use. For example, so most programming languages nowadays, if not all of them, have built-in calculation things like operations like plus, minus, that kind of thing. But at the very beginning, there was adding and maybe subtracting. I'm not even sure if the earliest processors had subtracting. It was basically just like 0 and 1, and this or this. And then you had to build a program that would be able to add or subtract. So once you built that program, you would use that in other programs you were building that you needed to use adding and subtracting in. And those are a lot of times called libraries in modern programming, where you can, like, there might be a library that, let's say you want to make a window for your program. Well, it's not super easy to make a window by coding it all in C or C++ or Rust or any programming languages. So what you do is you get a library where somebody or a group of people already built a program that can open a window. You use that, and then you do whatever you need to do with that window. But so yeah, that's a lot of programming. Using other programs, that brings to mind this. I want to give this kind of definition of programming. If you're old enough to remember, back in I think the latest they were around was probably like the late 90s. I think DVDs came around right around in the 2000s, so early 2000s. But there were video cassette recorders, which is tapes. There were tapes that you watched movies on, and that was pretty much it. You watched movies, but you could hook your cable TV up to the VCR, and then you could do what's called programming the VCR to record at a specific time and on a specific channel. And that was basically what programming is. You're getting in there, you're setting a time, you're saying record at this time on this channel, go, and then the computer does what it's told to do. So if you see, this is a picture of an actual VCR menu, and it was actually called programming, timer programming. So yeah, that's a cool example of programming, in my opinion. Programming is also, it's not just writing new programs. A lot of programming is fixing old programs, because you just find bugs. Like, bugs are just like a never-ending thing because technology is constantly changing. Maybe you need to run an old program on a newer operating system. That's going to cause issues you got to fix, all kinds of reasons. And so just fixing and maintaining programs is a huge part of programming. And I don't know, it's just as fun as the rest of it, in my opinion. And then this is another big part of programming that I think early on people don't understand, because like in movies you always see people like just like smacking away on the keyboard, like not doing anything. Like it's like they have all this stuff in their head and they're just like, but actually a lot of programming is first of all, like planning out your program, like just thinking about like how you're going to do it before you actually start typing. And then when you're typing, you're going to have to Google a lot to figure out like, oh yeah, like how was it that you're supposed to, what's the best kind of loop to use for this situation, or what's the best way to display a window on my screen, or how do I change the color of this window with Rust programming language or with C++ or whatever. A lot of that is just searching Google, and there's articles, and so, but I put here specifically using your technical knowledge, because the articles usually are technical, so they have that jargon in there that's hard for people who aren't technical to understand anyway. So you still do have to have that basis of knowledge, but then once you have that, then you can Google and search effectively and understand what you're finding and do some powerful things. And that leads into programming is researching, reading, learning. It's a lot of that. It's a lot of like, let me research what program language is going to work best for the task that I want to accomplish. And then let me read about this programming language to learn how it works, learn its syntax, learn how I do declare variables, or learn how I do conditional logic in this language. And so if you like learning, I love learning and I love reading things, researching. It's really fun to me. And if you like that, I think programming would probably be a good fit for you. And then at its very most root level, the fundamental, what programming is solving problems. That's any program that ever made any money, unless it was just some weird fluke, solved a problem. Even like video games, they solved the problem of kids being bored, or they solved the problem of kids wanting to have fun, or wanting to play with their peers. So even every program is ultimately solving problems. So if you like solving problems, that's what's up, do some programming. And not that there's other professions where you can solve problems, but programming is just, that's what it is, like solving problems on a computer especially. So that's programming. If you have anything to add it in the comments, and thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something.